Good morning. I'm back here working on my 2015 Live and Light Camp Light Truck Camper 8.6. One problem that I have with this camper, and I knew this going in, is the lighting. These lights kind of suck. It's not too bad right now during daylight because now that I've painted, it's actually quite bright in here. But whenever you're working in an area, you see my shadow right there because the light is behind my head. Now I turn around to where I want to have the table at. If I'm working over here, oh look, my shadow is blocking whatever I'm doing. So I want to fix that. And the way that I plan on doing this is, first off, there's only one light switch right here. I'm going to turn this into a three-way switch so I can put another switch right about here-ish. I want to be able to reach it from down below. That switch operates the main lights as well as being able to go bright or dim on the main lights. But I want more lights on that switch. The lights that I'm using are these little recessed lights. Got these pretty cheap on Amazon and they're actually reasonably bright. There we go. They're 3-watt LEDs and relatively bright. Put this up here, you can see the effect that has. So I think having a bunch of these scattered around will be hugely beneficial to the lighting situation in here, make it a more even light and also eliminate shadows. So my plan is, I've got these 3 storage cabinets right here and I've taped out where the aluminum support structure is underneath this. My plan is to run one light right here underneath this center post and one light here underneath this center post to wherever I am able to bring wiring in addition to the ones that go underneath the storage there. One light here and here, and a light here and here-ish. So the thought behind that is when I'm standing at the stove right here, I'll have a light over either shoulder cascading down, lighting my work area. No shadows. It should also line up very evenly with the center posts on here so that all of the light is, you always have light that is coming down from in front of you rather than down from behind and centered above you, which is what causes the shadows. In addition to those ceiling lights, I also would like to do something underneath the microwave here, as well as another light. We have the one, but I want to replace this with a couple of those puck lights to recess them up and have them be less in the way. And all of those lights be on the master switch. This one here is not on the master switch, it's just its own thing. I want everything on the master switch, that way it's either all on or all off. Also in this video, I'm going to be installing USB outlets. This has 2 USB-C and 1 standard USB in it, and these are going to be used to power a phone charger, a phone, Apple Watch, and AirPod charger actually, for both of us. And this will all get mounted at either end of the headboard up there. And I need to order a couple more of these so that we're gonna put a third one in the middle for my wife's fan because she likes to sleep with that. And then I probably will be installing one of these up in the overhead trim piece that has the speakers in it that hides all that wiring up there. I'm going to start off by taking a few measurements here, marking and drilling holes in this Azdel panel, as well as punching a hole in the aluminum. There's a piece of aluminum in here so that my wires can come up into the channel that is behind this piece of Azdel. So what you saw me do just there is install the lights underneath these, and it's going to be a similar process for the ceiling, except that in the ceiling I'm going to have to go through insulation up here, which is going to suck. but I just used this wire here is coming in from the switch power. There'll be more Wagos right here, and it comes down to a 3 Wago that hooks up to this light and splits off to a 2 Wago here to connect this light. Those are ready to have power applied to them, so that will happen a little bit later. Next, I am going to install the 2 USB outlets that I have, and actually I'm going to go where that one is and then over here, get my far ones done. Here I started off by drilling the 3 holes for my USB ports, and I ran the wires for the far 2 USB ports first, as that's where I'm going to install. I used a trim removal tool to unstick the Asgel from the frame because it was stuck on with double-sided sticky tape. That way I could access the backside to install the USB ports. From there, I cut out this little piece of Luan and then used my tape measure to fish out the wires that I had just installed. And here I'm wiring everything up to Wagos, that way I can easily change things if I need to in the future. That is my plus and minus for all 3 of the USB ports. I'll install this one off camera when it comes in. And man, cutting this stuff here with a hole saw, that's got a lot of fiberglass in it or something. It's very itchy. I got a lot more of it to do because I've got to install lights. Next thing on my list is going to be the lights above. You know the phrase measure twice, cut once? That was written for me. I punched a hole in the wrong spot. I just realized I had this facing backwards from the camper. These are fine because those are all centered, but that there for the USBs. Oh, and I also ran the wires the wrong way. I need to reverse the way all of the wires are run. And I also need to punch a hole right here instead of right there. I'm an idiot. I want to figure my life out here really quick. Fixed my whoopsie, and I've got this all wired up now, so I've got my lights coming into these 5-way Wagos, and then punched another hole for a USB, and I decided to run a USB at either end, figuring I can maybe use some gooseneck USB reading lights or something like that up there. I don't know. Or I'll just have a USB at both ends. Either way, both holes will be plugged, and those are coming off of a longer pigtail. I've decided that I'm going to have the USB ports on switches, that way I can kill power to them easily when we leave the camper. If I'm boondocking, it'll be a double switcher on the backside right here. One will be for the lights, the other one will be for USB power. So what I have laid out is where the blue tape is where lights will be. Now, when I use the hole saw, I need to make sure that I don't hit a roof support structure member. So what I'm going to do first is drill a pilot hole and A, make sure that doesn't hit metal. B, if it doesn't, then I'm going to poke and prod in all 4 directions, namely to the front of the camper or the back of the camper, is going to be the test for how close am I to a support member. If I don't hit anything within like 3 inches, I'm good. What I have done, measured from this trim line right here to this truss right here, and I get 15.5 inches. Measured out to where I wanted the other ones, made a mark on my first piece of tape, added a second piece of tape where the truss is, measured 15.5 inches. So now I know exactly where the truss is right here. I am going to drill my hole very close to the truss, probably about 1 millimeter away from where the truss is. So it'll be extremely close, but that will let me poke fish wire up through and out right here. And that will also allow me to figure out how I'm going to get wire that way. That didn't work nearly as well as I had hoped. I drilled my hole and went up at an angle. The the next one of these upright supports is right about here. So I just aimed so that I would be missing the side of it. Put a little bend in my fish wire so that it would hook around, and now that's coming out through there. And this is where I'm going to pull the wire that's going to go between this and this. I'm going to pull that up through here. I'm going to do the same thing that I did on this side over here and bring the wire up here so that I can pull the wire down back through there, if that makes sense. What I'm doing now is using some wire loom to pull the wire up through the ceiling into the channel where I'm going to be working from. And then I try to use the fish wire to burrow my wires over into the cabinets, but there was something blocking that, so I'm going to have to figure out another way. Now moving on to working on the lights above the counter, I started off by drilling my pilot hole and then getting a measurement from both the wall and to the front edge of the cabinet before punching it all the way through. From there I took those measurements and applied that to the holes that I was drilling above the sink, that way the lights look evenly spaced. This is a lot harder than I anticipated. First off, I got in a hurry and I forgot to check where I was drilling. I need to make sure that I don't hit a roof support structure member, and I hit metal, so I had to double drill. I'm not worried about the structural integrity of that, by the way. The damage that I did is less than the factory hole where the factory light was. Now, you're gonna see this and be like, oh, what are you gonna do with that? Well, I'm gonna tuck it back up in just like the factory light was. And on both that light and this light, I'm going to put a 4-gang switch cover plate that doesn't have any light switch holes in it. I'll just cover it right up. And then none of this will be visible. This here, I am going to use some sort of caulking to repair that. That'll just be a little reminder that I'm an idiot and I need to think before I act sometimes. So yeah, that'll tuck up in there and disappear. I've got power to here, and from here, I'm going to punch over to here. And then also from here, I'm going to go through the ceiling to here, and then I will go through this channel right here to out here where I can hook up to this wire to power these 2 lights. So by the end of the night, I should have at least 4 more lights with power. All right, I have an update. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now what I did to dig out underneath these last couple is I've got room to tuck the Wagos up there. I dug out just a little bit more, and then I have to dig out right here and right in here to make room for these little fingers, and then they just pop right up in there. And actually, like, this one here is fitting properly. It fits nice and tight. This one here is a little bit loose, so I'll actually take this one down. There we go. I will actually go ahead and take this one out just a little bit further. There we go. All right, now the Wagos fit up there nicely. Beautiful. Now that one is nice and flush. Oh, and the wires come from here into this one, tee off to this one, and then this one comes through the styrofoam right up there, across here to some Wagos that are up here, and then out to this one and this one. In order to power these two underneath here, I'm going to run a wire down through this channel and drill a hole up inside of here and run my wiring back behind for that. This has been a pain. I'm on day 4 of working on wiring, and I literally spent all of today. I started on this at 4 o'clock. It's now 8:30. Today I ran 1, 2, 3 wires in that amount of time. The rest of this has taken me about 20 minutes of pulling things to length, stripping, and attaching Wagos. It's been an undertaking, to say the least. I got smart and I pulled out my fish tape. I forgot that I had it. So this wire here, using my old method of using solid copper wire to push through, this one took me about 2 hours. And then the one that I used the fish tape on, 30 minutes tops. And I was able to use some magnets to follow the fish tape through the ceiling. Also found out that in my all aluminum camper there is definitely steel backing plates in here. So now I have power coming from the switch up into here, powering all of these lights, and then coming up and powering these two as well. Then from the switch up to the factory spot, powering these two lights, and that power will go from here down into here to this wire for these two lights. Starting to get things cleaned up in here, and the time has come to repair my whoops-a-daisy as best I can. How I decided to repair this was to put tape over the cuts, then I cleaned it up with a razor blade, that way there was no frayed edges on the cuts, and then I just packed a bunch of caulking in there and scraped it off with the razor blade to make it as not visible as possible. Peeled the tape off, filled that little center hole with the caulking, and called it good. There we go. That's about as good as it's going to get. But that's fine. That's not going to be super noticeable to anybody that comes in here. And also it being up by the light itself, if you're looking at the light, it's blinding enough that you can't see it. I'm okay with that fix until I come up with something better, but I don't think I will. I think that's just going to be it. Okay, so what we have here is a single pole double throw switch. In other words, when you flip the switch up, it makes a connection, and when you flip the switch down, it makes a connection. So in this case, we've got the bed and the door. So the power comes in from the battery positive to the center pin of the single pole double throw switch up at the bed. That way, when we turn it on, it is now sending power to the door over here. When we turn the door switch on, that sends power through the switch up to the light bulb, which then turns on. Now, when we crawl into bed, we've probably got the light switch on. We turn off the light switch at the bed like this, and now the power comes in, goes out, but it doesn't go out to the light because the door switch isn't flipped. If Katie gets up before me, for example, then just decides to turn on the light after she's already done a couple things out here, she can flip the door switch down without having to reach up above the bed, and that will turn the lights back on. Now, obviously that puts it in a weird position because now our light switches are backwards, but that's an easy fix by just switching the bed and the door both up, and then our door switch that we use 99% of the time is going to be in the right position. So I have that wire run. The 10 gauge switch wire comes in here. The 12 gauge goes in all the way up at the top there so it can go through that channel. They come through the side of the refrigerator console here, down, comes in right here where it starts going through a wire loom. And then I have it run down underneath here, down through a natural opening in the bottom of this cavity, and then up along the main wiring harness across the top here. Back there you can see here it is in the wire loom right now. It will ultimately end up down here, secured to some of this bracing, and then hooked up to that switch. For the 12 gauge wire that goes up to the lights above the bed, I pulled the black or the ground wire out of the loom so that I can properly hook that up to a ground right near the electrical panel. I already have things kind of taken apart. Got the power box pulled out. It's live. I'm being very careful. Don't do that. I have found the 12 volt ground bus bar, which is right back there. Yeah, you can see it. It's right there, dead center of the screen. What we have going on here, this yellow wire is the original power wire from the box. This has been cut. It is now dead. So that goes away. This first red wire here, ooh, don't go back behind there, please. Okay, so I'm going to take the old switch out and set that off to the side, and the new switch in. Yeah, it's a white switch, whatever, I don't care. It'll do what I need it to do. This is the power going out from the switch. This one that says all lights, and this goes up to all of the ceiling lights. And then we're gonna do the red wire on the top from, and this is the power coming in from the other switch, and the black wire on the bottom. This is also the power coming in from the other switch, depending on which way the other switch is flipped. There we go. So we've got two power coming in, one power going out. So I've got the wiring run for the main power, and we have the lighting main power coming from the panel, the three-way communication from the other, or to the other switch rather, and then our USB main power. I'm going to start with the USB first. As you'll see here shortly, I'm using waterproof heat shrink crimp terminals to wire up the switches. What we have is power in to the USB switch, power out from the USB switch, and then over here we have our power coming in, and then our same top and bottom red and black power going out from this switch to the other switch, and then the power goes out of that other switch to the lights, like I explained earlier. I'm gonna go ahead and leave all that out for now, and we'll get power hooked up to it and see if it all works. For the power here, I have numbers 10, 11, and 12 blank, and then number 4 is the lights. Number 4, I have already put a WEGO on, and then we want number 10, and these are labeled. There we go, there's number 10. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off, get a WEGO put on there, and this one will be for the USB ports. And once again, it's me from the future. Now that this project is all wrapped up, and I've actually used this for the last few months, and it works flawlessly. I absolutely love it. So here's what it looks like all completed. We've got 2, 4, 6 main lights, 2 lights above the table. You can see a prototype table that I have set up here to make sure that what I wanted to do is going to work. 4 lights above the countertop, which makes it so much more visible. Yeah, the 3 lights above the bed, which works out fantastic. And I ended up using these 2 USB ports for some twinkle lights. So there's the view of those lights. And if I turn off the main lights, that is what it looks like. It makes for a really, really nice, soft reading and relaxing light for watching a movie or whatever. They came with a little remote that I can change modes or just turn them off entirely. And then when I switch the USB ports off, those lights also turn off as well. Overall, I'm really, really, really happy with the final result of this. It was a pain to install. As I've been making this video, I realized a few other things that I would have done slightly differently that maybe you can apply, and you already heard me mention some of those. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this. I know it was kind of a long and detailed video, but there was a lot of figuring out to do. Stay tuned in the future, and I will cover the install of my new faucet, drinking water faucet, and sink. We'll also do a video on the dinette build, and I'll do a walkthrough video of my solar and electrical setup when I finally get everything completed with that. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.